Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today I'll be talking about the transformative aspect of Sejahtera Academic Framework. So, Sejahtera Academic Framework was formulated in 2020. It was the time of turbulence, the time where every aspect of our life was disrupted. We could not conduct um, uh, um, we cannot conduct our life to tend to our necessities in the conventional way, so we were forced to change. That is to say that at this point, um, the change in life was very inevitable. So in that context, Sejahtera Academic Framework was developed for IIUM to help and guide the university the way to adapt, okay, in order to survive and progress. But more than that, it also aims to not just adapt, okay, it aims for the leadership position in making the change itself, leading the change. And how does it do that? It aims to do that by emphasizing the humanism aspect of education. So we see here Sejahtera Academic Framework, it attempts to direct change in the ecosystem of the entire university, um, so that it will be able to cultivate graduates whose growth are holistic. Okay, in other words, it it aims to be um, the University of Humanity, or Jami'ah Insania, where it is focused on the cultivation of holistic human being. This is um, um, significant, especially given the context of the modern society, where the educational institution has become part of the capitalistic instrument that produces workers instead of good human being, instead of um, genuine intellectual learners. So through Sejahtera Academic Framework, the university is trying to depict itself as the force of humanization in education against the increasing tendency, or not only increasing, I would say it's the core tendency of the modern society, which is materialism. So let's take a look at which aspect that I have found to be in line um, uh, with Jack Mezirow's transformative learning theory. Okay, so the concept of transformative learning itself is crucial here. Okay, it was introduced by the sociologist Jack Mezirow, who talk about frame of reference, or um, the structure of meaning that a human have So what Jack Mezirow proposed is that everyone has their own meaning structure. Everyone have their own frame of reference. Okay, and we understand the world around us. We understand our experience through the lens of this frame of reference, through this structure of meaning. And at the same time, uh, the way we learn about the world also, it builds up that same frame of reference. And usually once once the element that makes up the frame of reference is erected or embedded within us, um, it stays. Okay, it is entrenched. And then if we found anything that is incompatible with our meaning structure or frame of reference, what we do is we tend to reject those, especially if we could not come up um, with the sub. I mean, we could not create new substructure to adapt the new things that are incompatible with the frame of reference. So Jack Mezirow, he talks about transformative learning when referring to the change that happens in our frame of reference, meaning to say, when we experience change in our meaning structure, when we experience transformation in the way that we view the world, we are actually experiencing transformative learning. So, um, Jack Mezirow also emphasized the fact that usually or frequently, transformative learning, it will lead to the betterment or improvement in the way that we see the world. So um, it is a shift in the frame of reference from one that is problematic to that which is more rational and justified. So as we experience the world, supposedly our worldview or our frame of reference should grow as we experience more things. It should grow in the sense that previously it knows less, right? There is not much that the worldview is exposed to. So it may tend to be rigid. So after learning about the world more, after experiencing um, um, various conditions of life, it should lead to that frame of reference growing. In other words, transformative learning is also about the way one matures in the way that we think. And this general aspect of transformative learning seems to be what the Sejahtera Academic Framework was aiming for. Okay, as indicated through the statement, one of the opening statement of Sejahtera Academic Framework itself, it aims to change the attitude and worldview, personal psychological growth, and for successful adaptation while building upon personal experiences of learner. And this is um, how I believe that Sejahtera Academic Framework, it contains the potentiality that that can inculcate transformative learning in the sense meant by Jack Mezirow. So we take a look at another aspect in Sejahtera academic framework that might fit or might be in line with Mezirow's transformative learning theory. Okay, another important concept in transformative learning theory is the critical reflection. This critical reflection is what is the point that enables the transformation to happen in the first place. Okay, so it is the process of justifying the assumption embedded in one's own frame of reference. So critical reflection is the process where one take a look at your frame of reference or your previous frame of reference, and you see to it, you evaluate it, you judge it on whether your frame of reference is justified or not. So what Mezirow is trying to say here is that transformative learning does not happen passively. Okay, it happens actively and proactively. It requires you to look into yourself and to question whether your the way you view things, are they justified, are they rational, okay, do they contain biases, prejudice, and are those biases and prejudice tenable. So these are the process of critical reflection that one has to undergo through in order for a person to transform their frame of reference, and by that transformatively learn or experience transformative learning. And an important part of critical reflection is that it shall or it requires a form of holism, a form of plurality. So uh, and this means that uh, it is a process where one will come from a position in which your frame of reference is previously narrow in perspective to another position that in which your perspective is more open and more inclusive. Okay, and I will explain this a bit later. So um, in what way we can identify that in Sejahtera academic framework is first its emphasis on the cultivation of holistic human being that is conceptualized as insan sejahtera. So if we look here, insan sejahtera, it actually refers to the holistic human being or the holistic humanity aspect in the students. Okay, so um, it is the affirmation of that. It is the acknowledgement that students are first and foremost human beings. And so when it comes to their educational growth, their educational progress, what we want is to reflect the fact that they're human being. Okay? Meaning to say, we strive to have the student to flourish in all aspects that makes them human, from the spiritual to the physical to the intellectual to the economic to the social to the cultural, you know. So in that is what a good education or a transformative education would be. It touches upon the different aspects um, of growth. Okay, and um, and this can also be seen in another way. So holism and plurality. So previously I mentioned about how critical reflection, it naturally leads, or it is connected to holism. And here we can see that holism is also related to plurality. And what did Mezirow say about this? Okay, so what are exactly the connection between these three different concepts? Alamak. So, the Mezirow said that the more reflective and open we are to the perspective of others, the richer our imagination of alternative contexts for understanding will be. Meaning to say that um, critical reflection and um, holism and plurality, they are um, mutually needed for each other. Okay. Um, so remember, I said about transformative learning is how one could mature in the way that one think and see about the world, and this is, and I have also mentioned about how one experiences more things, more condition. It also affects the way that one sees the world, right? The frame of reference will also experience growth. And Mezirow also mentioned about how critical reflection is important, meaning to say that it is a very proactive process that involves the person, the learner, to take a look at his frame of reference and take charge of the transformative process itself. So, so the relation between um, critical reflection and plurality is such that um, for you to grow, you need to be more open to the different perspective. Okay, because it deepens and it enriches your understanding, and it is the very condition that enables you to um, that enables you to transform your frame of reference to become one that is more mature, to become one that is less narrow, less rigid. In other words, to be able to be critically reflective also means to be able to um, look at and to engage with different perspectives other than yours, and um, incorporating that incorporating that diversity within you and accommodating to that. Okay, that is what enables critical reflection. And another way that Sejahtera academic framework seems to be encouraging for the such process to take place in the system is through the disciplinary approach. Okay, which refers to the mode of involvement and roles played by different fields of knowledge and expertise towards each other. So Sejahtera academic framework, it talks about um, the need for different fields of knowledge in the institution to collaborate together, okay, to solve certain intellectual problems. So at the level of the multidisciplinary is where these different fields contribute their own perspective and views on the problems. It can transcend this level into the interdisciplinary phase where all the fields, they integrate, they work together, they collaborate together to form an integrated understanding or an integrated approach, a combined approach towards the problem that they're solving. The last one is the transdisciplinary level, and this is the highest level of collaboration. It is basically the synthesis of all the new fields into a new one. Okay, so this actually pretty much reminds us of the Islamization of Knowledge project that also aims at synthesis. Okay, it is transdisciplinary in that sense. Okay, that attempts to fuse Islamic worldview with Western worldview, um, in forming an integrated or Islamic approach towards knowledge. So, because of its emphasis in the different fields of knowledge, we see that there is celebration, or there is emphasis on the needs to have a variety and diversity of perspective here that Sejahtera academic framework is promoting, and in this sense it is in line with uh, the aspects of holism and plurality uh, in Mezirow's transformative learning theory. And the next one is autonomy. It is the quality by which a person um, enables themselves to be influenced by the different perspective, by the different school of thought, by different opinions, without being dogmatically tied and limited to a singular perspective. It is also the ability to question and reflect the validity of presupposition that one learned from the different perspective and their implication upon one's own worldview. So autonomy is also another important concept in transformative learning theory. It is in a way almost synonymous or interchangeable with the concept of critical reflection itself, but autonomy more so touches upon whether or not you have the capacity and the capability to do that, whether you have the power to perform critical reflection. Okay, so autonomy talks about or touches about um, in the face of the many different opinions, were you able um, to not be limited to a particular perspective, but rather to be able to see the strength, the soundness, meaning be able to evaluate fairly, rationally all the different perspective that comes to you. That is what being autonomous means. So in what way does the Sejahtera academic framework promote autonomy? Okay, I would argue that all the guiding principles actually promotes that. The first is innovation. So the guiding principle of innovation is defined as new idea, method, product for a better outcome. Basically, innovation, it promotes autonomy, or it promotes critical reflection by virtue of the fact that innovative happens when or is a consequence of understanding that the previous framework, the previous way of thinking is insufficient or is inadequate to address the current problem that one is facing. So, innovativeness, it actually necessitates critical, reflective thinking, because one should be because it requires one to see that the previous it requires one to evaluate the previous framework, its workability, in order for it to exist. So by encouraging innovativeness means one is being open in the system of the fact that we needs to be um, critically reflective all the time, okay, to think of a better way to progress and work. So it is one way um, to encourage autonomy and critical reflection. The second principle that promotes autonomy and critical reflection is accountability. Okay, it is being responsible and being able to justify the decision that one make, as one is empowered to make those decisions. So accountability, it requires everyone in the system to think about, to reflect whether or not their enterprise in their educational and pedagogical enterprise is appropriate or not, or is it in line, or does it deliver what it should be? Is it as impactful as it is needed by the educational vision? It is essentially looking at and evaluating the integrity in the way that one does work within the educational system. So it is critically reflective at its best, actually, because it requires us to, make critical reflective evaluation on the way that we do things all the time. Students, the instructors, the leading decision makers in the institution. So this is the second way that statutory academic framework seems to be in line in promoting transformative learning. The third is empowerment. Okay, empowerment is the delegation of power that enables action. When one is granted or given the power to be able to act. So students are affirmed to be autonomous, to be empowered in the way that they can determine their growth, academic path, their own academic path, growth, and process. Um, so students are able to select the diverse elective courses for free. They're able to choose what course to study, to organize their own time, to organize their own course, and determine their own path. What do they want to be? What outcome do they want for themselves? And for the instructors, it's the organization of the course based on their interests and expertise. So empowerment is more like the external aspect that would encourage autonomy, that would encourage the previous to innovativeness and the accountability. And then the last one is flexibility. It refers to the modifiability of various education structure to meet the educational goal of students and instructors, even when faced with disruption. So this is pretty much structural, the structural aspect, whether or not one can modify the structural aspect to be able to meet the educational goal in the situation of disruption. So this pertains to the curriculum structure itself, the pedagogy, the assessment, the time class, the class venue, the platform. So one needs to be flexible in the structure in order to empower the students to make decision, to not only the students, the teachers, to make decisions for themselves. And when they are empowered, then they are able to be critically reflective, because they would be able to judge and see the impact and um, uh, then the integrity of their enterprise, as had been said in one of the previous principle of accountability and also innovativeness in the way that they are able to solve that problem. They need a structure that is flexible, a structure that is empowering for them to be able to perform critical reflection to achieve the better educational outcome. And lastly, um, transformative learning is also dialogical in nature. So Jack Mazirow's is also influenced by Paulo Freire, a Brazilian educationist, thinker, and philosopher who talks about um, pedagogy as well. Okay, who emphasize a lot about dialogue. Okay, the need for dialogical learning. So transformative learning experience, it requires engagement with and through the expression of other people's perspective, meaning to say that you also cannot perform, you cannot have um, learning that is transformative without engaging with other people who have different worldview. So it is also very transformative learning is also very people engaging, very social. Okay, it requires you to interact with people to broaden your horizon. So it can only be formed through dialogic, where radical reflection must be undertaken collectively and equally. So meaning to say that the way that you engage with other people also matters. You must engage in such a way that you want to learn from other people, okay, looking at them as an equal who can offer you something of value for you to take in and acquire within your frame of reference. Okay, it cannot happen in a situation where you want to impose your worldview upon others, because that would result in not you learning anything out of that, but just um, strengthening your own narrow worldview, your own prejudice and biases. And this dialogical aspect of learning can be seen in one way through the program of study circle or Usrah Budi, where students and facilitators they gather together to discuss contemporary issues, and in what ways through their religion um, can be of relevant to address those issues. And it also requires them to engage in or to participate in community engagement program, where they will go into um, parts of the society and address the issue that is happening locally. So um, the potentiality for dialogical learning can be seen through one of the program, the study circle. The mode of this program is what we call as the community co-learning. Okay, so I've come to the conclusion that Sejahtera academic framework, from my analysis, it contained crucial elements that will make up the transformative learning that was proposed by Jack Mezirow. Okay, I think I have made the case for that. It also affirmed, okay, my analysis also affirmed uh, um, the Sejahtera academic framework aim to cultivate the holistic being, and in line with its vision to lead the change in humanizing education against anti-intellectual and capitalizing force. It also represent transformation in IIUM itself, um, and in such a way that it is a response to the critic who criticized IIUM and its core philosophy of Islamization of knowledge for being hegemonic in its orientation, for being um, um, nativist, as criticized by Syed Farid Alatas, this sociologist from Singapore, the son of another renowned sociologist, Syed Hussein Alatas. For me, I think Sejahtera academic framework shows that IUM has the capability to evolve to be better as time goes by, because it is in a way experiencing transformative learning itself. So Islamization of knowledge as a philosophy may also underwent the same direction of as a result of transformative learning. So that is all from me. Thank you very much.